back to another APC Speaks podcast episode recording. Yes, this is part two, or actually the second episode of our collaboration with APC Speaks. What? No, we're APC Speaks. This is our second collaboration episode with APC PsychSoc that APC Speaks has with them. All right, there we go. So, the last episode you guys saw is the first one. Was the first one, and that was with, I don't remember their names, so that post me can like put their names there. But yes, and so today we're recording the second one for our collaboration, and with me, actually, I have one returning guest and one new guest. Over to my right, I have Mitch, or as I used to call him, Chivo. And then down here, we have Niamph. So they're gonna be joining me today, and they are from 201. So
Yeah.
last week we had one from 211. Now we have 201, and the last group that we're going to be having for next week would be 191. That's just because that's how our school named our sections after. Just leave it be. All right. So, with all that being said and done, I will start this off the same way I do with every single one of my podcast recordings. I'm going to be asking you guys, how are you?
Doing spontaneous.
Anyone can start.
I'm doing fine.
Okay.
Just the same.
Did you say same?
Absolutely great. I'm sorry for the background. That's simple.
It's a room. How are you gonna be sorry for the background? It's a room. But yes, how are you? All I heard was same on Niamph's end.
Hello. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm just doing fine. I'm just doing the same, busy with schoolworks and everything. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm really awkward. I don't do podcasts as much as
It's fine.
It's actually my first time, so
I don't
He's
do
gonna
that
carry
either.
you.
Even my
That's fine.
background.
He's gonna carry you. All right, how about you, Mitch? Mitch.
It's actually a rather slow week.
Mm.
I mean, not slow, more like boring. Because most of the weeks after, like, let's say midterms,
Yeah.
one was like midterms last 2 weeks ago, I guess.
Somewhat. Yeah.
Those weeks on, it just seemed rather dull, and I kind of get that. Well, not. I think eventually it'll get back to that running pace because by next month, a lot's gonna happen. But I guess for now, we're kind of like working in with PsychSoc, with the whole organization. I mean, not organizations, all of the events that's gonna be happening. Let's say with the Call of Duty one, same goes with the Valorant. I think that's gonna be going like later evening. I'm not
tomorrow.
sure.
I think
Tomorrow. Oh, yeah,
the COD one is tomorrow, yeah.
Oh,
We started the tournaments already?
Yeah. I mean, they're kind of telling up the teams right now, coordinators and such, and they're kind of like making the team captains. I don't know. I never played the game. I don't plan on playing the game. Maybe
never
I
did,
do.
dude. I never did.
Exactly. Yeah. So
I saw
well,
League of
that's it.
Legends
Right
appear, and I got excited, and then I found out it was Wild Rift, and I was like,
there. It was Wild Rift, yeah.
nope.
It's for the
I'm done.
convenience of mobile. I'm not gonna lie.
Mhm.
Kind of. I mean,
Whatever.
yeah, but it's happening. It's going, but academically speaking, it's been rather dry or somewhat neutral, which I prefer. I don't want the most hassle things stuff like midterms. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
you Tell me. All right. So that's good. And it's good to know that you guys are pretty chill as of the current moment, which is nice. So that means we can proceed with the conversation and start it off in a very chill manner. I'm hoping so, and maybe even end it in a very chill manner. I don't know. You guys might get emotional. I don't know. It's hey, look, I've had guests that became emotional. Last week was somewhat emotional. Doesn't matter. All right. So like always, the podcast recordings are, well, I aim to tackle questions or topics that people don't really talk about much, or what other people will count as taboo. I don't know why they would call it as taboo. I think it's just people don't want to deal with it, and that's the reason why it's called taboo in some way, shape, or form. Probably culture-wise, or just in whatever aspect it is from. But yes, that is how some things are seen, and this one might be as well the topic for today, which the two of them have chosen for themselves. And the topic for today, what are the pros and cons of endurance? So I've asked them prior to this recording. I've asked them where the question came from, and it's obviously seen from a student perspective. But we can dive onto that more later. But right now, I'm going to be asking you guys a more preliminary question, I guess, or yeah, a preliminary question about our topic, and that is, how do you guys view or how do you guys define endurance? I can't hear you.
Hello,
Yes,
yeah.
okay, go.
I view it as endurance. I think endurance is pretty good
Okay.
for a person because it teaches us not to give up easily on things. Whereas sometimes endurance tend to break people because if you endure too much, means people tend to forget about themselves. You just keep going until they totally break, like totally.
Okay.
And
Mitch.
Hmm. What's a good example of endurance? Okay, so like when you I'm not sure if most people know about it, but like when you play Warframe and there's this one specific game mode that you call survival. Practically you have to kill a bunch of enemies over and over again, repetitively, trying to grind for something, trying to go for something. But like there's a bunch of life supports, you have to press them or interact with them, otherwise you're gonna be snuffed out by air. It doesn't make sense, but it happens. But what we call them are endurance runs. Endurance runs are practically to keep up with that consistency and to keep up with that flow, to maintain that sense of accomplishment, I guess. Whether it can be like maybe in a real life application of like complying in exams, or maybe when it comes to like answering a question in a impromptu manner. Either way, you have to actually like keep going with this in a repetitive way to the point that you just get used to it. Endurance. So that's practically that.
Okay, so just to give context to the example he gave, survival runs in game called Warframe. Basically, the way it works is you need to stay alive for as long as you can while you're getting attacked by multiple things. And the air supports that he was referring to are basically things that keep you alive in terms of breathing. So, like in space, if you run out of oxygen in space from your gas tank, you will suffocate to death. It works the exact same way. I'm gonna incorporate that later on as to what, or actually, no, I shall incorporate it. And now, the reason why they're called endurance runs is because for us personally as players, we have to stay there for a very, very long time. Survival runs don't necessarily have a time limit. You choose your time limit. Some people even go for an entire hour on a single survival run. You would ask, why would you do that? Because doesn't that basically just burn you out as a person? Yes, it will, but the reason why you do that is because the longer you stay on the run, the more loot you get. And that's why it's called an endurance run. And exact same way that how those endurance runs work, you have life support that help you as the player to stay alive longer, or it aids you. Just like how some things in life would aid you as well. Obviously, you would then define what your life support is in real life, and what else would you be gunning for, or what you would be aiming for when you do your endurance runs. So, because in Warframe, you can also choose what endurance run you're going to be doing. And depending on which run you choose, you get a different output, you get a different reward in the end of it. So, in terms of life aspect, then we would see it in terms of choose your endurance run. You need to decide what really you're aiming for. What are you actually trying to achieve in life, and what reward are you actually aiming for? And your life support, that is something you also define, because okay, let me rephrase that. you know yourself better than anyone can. But don't forget that us being humans, we have blind spots as well, and being able to see life from a different perspective or from a different lens also allows us to upgrade the way we see things or upgrade the way that we view life in general. So yes, we know better for ourselves, but getting perspective from someone else isn't so bad as well. If anything, that will help you decide further what really is good for you and what really isn't. So then, in this perspective, going to what Niamph said as her definition of endurance, because it lets you hold out longer, right? It lets you hold out into things that really matters. But it's also bad because there are things that will burn you out. That's basically the second half of your definition, which then leads to my second question, and it's also connecting to the endurance one that Mitch mentioned a while ago. Do you guys know how to set the boundaries when you're in with your endurance?
Like personally, like
Yes.
in my point of view.
Or do you at least have a perspective on what is your boundary or your boundaries when it comes to endurance, or when you are aiming or you're gunning for something?
I'm as a person as a not super fragile, like as a fragile person, I set my boundaries kapag talagang hindi ko na kaya. Kasi alam ko sa sarili ko, if I push myself further, ako lang kawawa. Ako lang yung parang, kahit i-push ko sa sarili ko, hindi ko siya makukuha kasi hindi ko na kaya. So, yun.
You know what's interesting with that was that your definition or what you just said was actually counter to each other. Did you notice? You said that you put your boundaries for when you really can't take it anymore, but you're a fragile person. Do you see how that's contradicting to each other? Because normally, if you're a lot more fragile than you think you are, your boundaries wouldn't even go near where you can't take it anymore. You would put it way further down the line. Right? So, we'll explore that further on. But you, how about you, Mitch? What are you
There can be
eating? Sorry, I
points.
just want to ask, what are you eating?
What?
What you're eating?
Okay.
I just want to know what it
barely
is.
eat, I barely eat sugary things, so
Yeah.
it's usually candy,
Mm,
Mentos, spearmint.
yeah,
It's a fake one,
yeah.
but
yeah.
that's good. Anyways, what a specific thing that I know that I'm practically just gonna be breaking is usually the times that I know that boundary, like it's actually there, is when I'm listening to music, when I'm actually meditating,
Okay.
late night. Usually it's like 11:30. Doesn't really matter what song it is. Usually, well, lately I've been listening to soul music, or maybe even acoustic. I don't know how to pronounce it, I'm sorry. But usually with just those strums, with that bass, with that lines, out of the blue, I just really recollect my thoughts throughout the whole day, maybe back into a week or two. And to the point that I would even find myself just crying out of nowhere. That there, right there, is the point that I know that something is just going on, and that specific thing, that specific thought, is exactly what makes me think that my own endurance, my own resilience, is fragile. Again, I gotta do something about that. But that's a standard right there.
Yeah,
But
okay.
what I know, that's something's going on.
Okay.
But yeah.
So basically, what I'm picking up from the both of you is that you guys don't know your boundaries. That's pretty much what this is, right? And going back to what Niamph said as a description a while ago, on the second half of her description, rather, she mentioned that it's bad because sometimes you don't actually you push yourself too far, where it becomes difficult for you as a person, right? And that's where boundaries come in. Boundaries don't necessarily. Some people might argue that boundaries would stop you from your growth mindset. Some people will, because it will actually stop you from actually getting into your leaving your comfort zone, right? And yes, you can argue that, but that's the reason why you need to figure out properly the right boundaries for you, or what really is the value of the boundary for you. So in this context, then, you would have a clear distinction then of the breaking point and how far you can actually stretch yourself, because as everyone would know, you only grew out of your comfort zone. And this, I'm pretty sure this is like burned to the ground with how many times you guys have heard this, right? When it comes to then with the pros and cons of endurance, that's something that a person would then define for themselves. Yes, there's a common answer or a common definition that everyone can give you, right? So for example, you burn yourself out because you're enduring too much. Yes, that's a negative. Or I was able to achieve this promotion, or I was able to grow in my skill because I endured all of this. That's a pro. But what if the end of that is that you get burnt out? Yes, you achieved something. Yes, you got something good out of it. But what if you burn out? Doesn't that basically make your pro a con? Thus, where your boundaries, or rather the value of your boundary, comes in. Because you won't even need to reach that point where you sit alone at night playing music in your ear and then you just start crying and you're like, oh damn, I endured too much of my life. That means you're not aware of yourself. You're not aware of how you feel. You're not aware of how much your body is actually tanking. To everyone else who don't know what that means, tanking is basically when you are just in the forefront of everything and you're receiving the damage like you don't care. Right? That's what tanking means. All right. So that means you are not aware of how much damage your body or you are actually taking, mentally, physically, emotionally, soul even. And that's where the definition then of endurance comes in. So in your perspective, for the both of you then, actually a first good question then is, can you guys identify with how many times this has happened to you? Can you guys identify what normally breaks you? Are you guys
Depressing
aware?
as it sounds, it's probably
It depends. I'm not really sure.
But yes.
definitely
Okay, so sure, it depends. But do you guys have at least an idea on the things that break you?
people.
At least some of them. It
People.
can't. People is very generic. What about people?
Betrayal.
That point of where endurance. So there's a clear line between the positive and the negative part of endurance, right?
Mhm.
Are you guys at least aware of some of the things that actually tips over the line? So one of the things that Chivo mentioned was betrayal. Okay. Anything else?
Probably the way I pressure myself, but
Okay.
like say like I endure things, something like that. But every time I do things, I tend to pressure myself a lot, which makes me keep going without seeing the boundaries that I need to set and stuff like that. Because I pressured myself. I need to do this. I need to what do you call that? I need to let people know my worth, I guess, as a person. Ayan.
Okay, let's process that, right? You're pressuring yourself to show people your worth.
My
Yes?
worth. Yeah.
The first question is, do you know your own worth?
No. Words. Excuse me. No, okay.
That's the first question.
That's how I guess no. That's probably why I tend to pressure myself a lot kasi hindi ko pa nakikita yung worth ko. That's why I'm trying to find one like pagdating sa academically, like I tend to kahit di ko kaya like pinupush ko pa rin sa sarili ko to finish that kasi gusto ko pakita sa kanila na I'm okay academically.
Okay.
Ayun. And ayun.
But you are aware that every human being has their strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, pero
Okay. Have you accepted your own strengths and weaknesses? Or are you aware of them at the very least?
I'm not aware about my strengths.
That's the
I am
problem.
aware of my weaknesses.
That's the problem. Because
Mhm.
you wouldn't. Okay, you wouldn't. But it would help if you can actually figure out your strengths from your weaknesses, right? So, for example, in my end, I hate math. That's really weird for me to say. Basing from how my family line works, I hate math. I okay, no, I don't hate math. I'm lazy. I suck at science, but my English is high. And so when I did my thesis, I made an agreement with my batchmates that I'm going to tackle everything that's English based. Give me anything that is paper based, anything that has to be written. I'll proofread our paper 20 times over, doesn't matter. Just don't let me do statistics. Because I'm lazy.
What's numbers?
That puts my worth, okay, to everyone else who's taking their thesis, do not reveal that to your professors before you finish your thesis, because you might get attacked by the panel or whatever. But they didn't know that, because whatever. So I'm done with the thesis. It doesn't matter. I just hosted myself. No, the point of what I'm trying to make is I know my worth when it comes to what I can actually deliver. Right? I know what I can offer on the table, and that's the reason why the pressure doesn't really come in anymore. I don't pressure myself to be someone I'm not, because of the fact that I know what I can bring into the table. So if I can't bring that into the table, I'm letting it go. And humans are social beings. There's such a big reference from the first episode to this one, whatever. Humans are very social beings, and we collaborate and collaborate a lot, right? We do that a lot because we fill each other's weaknesses, and that's the point of it. So more so, you need to understand for yourself what really can you offer, or what really is your value as you, because that lessens the pressure on your end, and that allows other people to actually help you and you to help them. Pressure lessons for you, and you know what value you can give to the table, and that is just a first step to a billion of other things that will come out from this. But that's pretty much how you can start from it all. And really, I'm gonna add as an ending note, but I'm going to say it now as well, that I really hope you give yourself the opportunity. I hope you give yourself the privilege to actually explore that. Explore what you really like doing, explore your skills, explore the things that you want to do. I didn't reach the spot I'm in now just because of an overnight session with someone. No, God, it took me far too long, and it was a painful process because I kept running away from it. I was lazy. I know I was generally just lazy. That's pretty much all there was to it. All right, so how about you, Mitch? I don't even remember my question. What was my question?
Do you like categorize like specific things that that would like make you break, I guess? So for me, it was betrayal. And as ironic that sounds, really, I never really cared as much with people back then. And it took me about 6 years to actually acknowledge the fact that I can actually talk to people rather well. I can actually chill with them. In my setting with my family, we practically are mostly in a corporate sense. Thank goodness my mother is in a different case, but my father can be a bit different with her views. But due to
Okay.
this, it made me have this point of just have this notion in my head in a good number of years to not care about people.
Okay.
But as ironic that sounds, it got me to the point, especially in the pandemic now, with the number of people I can actually interact with, and given the expense of the internet and Discord, it actually makes me break on how betrayal can really work on me. And everyone experiences it with a whole lack of trusting. And I kind of think that the previous podcast was somewhat about the whole trusting, and trust is a very flimsy thing. It's scary. But I can say another factor that I could even decipher to myself that I would know that would get the whole endurance thing in me to break would be this whole nature and how ambitious I can be. It's
Okay.
not really in the manner of like being super pushy to the point that I really want to excel to it. No, it's actually just in a specific task that I actually want, that I can actually accomplish to it, that I know to myself that it's not in the sake of compliance. No, it's the sake of like a spark to keep going. And then just to yourself that I just need to keep doing this over and over again. But to the point that I'm actually at the grasp of it, maybe even holding it, I'm just so famished. I get super dried up like some very sad little weed. But I can say that's one of the few things that I can see myself to lose my endurance, But yeah.
So your process of having that endurance, right? Your process
Mm.
of figuring out that part. First off, pandemic is absolute piss. It sucked. I said this a lot to a lot of people. Whenever you're struggling with your relationships with any person, I really hope it's not a home thing. Because having issues at home is the worst.
Mm.
It's absolutely
Doo-doo.
it's absolutely doo-doo because of the fact that you can't do anything about it. It's not like you can just walk away. It's not like you can just run, right? Even
Yeah.
people who says na sanay ako maglayas. You can't do that. It's a bloody pandemic. You can't just run
Yeah.
away from home. And that's that's a problem that a lot of people will tend to face. Family endurance. It's a bigger topic. I'm not gonna tackle that today. But maybe I'll end up tackling that with actually that might be a good topic to tackle with. Okay, I'm getting future podcast ideas. Anyways, so other half of your definition is the when you push yourself and then you getting burned out at the end of it, right? That's pretty much what it is. That goes back to my question a while ago. Is do you guys actually know what is your boundary or what is the value of your boundary and where it actually starts to tip over from the pro to the con? Being aware of where those things are allows you to actually put it ahead of time. Rather, you're going to be aware before it even gets there. It's like instead of finding out that you're already at your breaking point while you're already there, knowing and being aware of your limits and your limitations allow you to actually let yourself know 3 miles before you even reach the place and you're like, yo, by the way, you're 3 miles away from your breaking point. Or, hey, by the way, you're 2 miles away from your breaking point. And being aware of how far you are to your breaking point in terms of endurance, we're just talking about endurance alone, allows you to then know and allows you to then plan how much you can actually do before you reach your breaking point and how you're going to stop before the breaking point. It allows you to even stop a kilometer before you even break yourself and you don't actually burn yourself out. Now, if we go into the concept or the idea of pushing yourself past your comfort zone, that's a completely different thing. Because that requires a different set of understanding upon yourself. That, for example, I'm afraid of heights. For example, I technically am. It's partial. I'm afraid of heights if it's not moving. That's pretty much how it works. If it's static in the air, I'm afraid as all hell. But if it's moving, I'm enjoying the time of my life. How does that work? I do not know. Knowing your limitations or knowing the things that actually brings you out of your comfort zone is what extends it, right? So for example, I can only last 5 seconds in this thing. If you push yourself, okay, I'm gonna go 6 seconds. Then when you come back to it later on, you now know that your limit is 6 seconds. And then you can go back again and say, okay, for today, I'm gonna make it 7 seconds. But that requires, and that's in the context of going out of your comfort zone. And that's in the process of you actually understanding what it is that you're trying to stretch out. But that's a completely different topic. If we're talking about endurance alone, your endurance grows to you as well. Your endurance isn't something that gets upgraded after you've noticed it. No, your endurance grows with you as a person, and that's something actually that people should actively be aware of as well. Just like how we're supposed to be aware of our limits when it comes to schoolwork, our limits when it comes to just normal work, our family, people who are introverted, knowing your limits of how much you can talk to people, or people who are extroverted, knowing how much you should actually be extroverted and to actually know when to shut. It's knowing when you should stop talking as an extrovert is something that people should be aware as well. Endurance comes from a perspective of how much endurance comes from a perspective of how much I am. My English is just failing me today. I'm just whatever. Endurance comes from a perspective of how much a person can take. Yes, your endurance can be stretched, and this is something that you can do more on, but this has to be in accordance to how much your entire body can take. There are some people that the reason why, even though they're physically tired, they're really down on the ground physically, and they're really, really tired mentally and like emotionally, they can still move it. I can't. That reference kicked into my head. They can still move it.
Oh,
That's
no.
sorry. I'm sorry. I had to. God, okay, my voice, my voice acting on like King Julian is coming back to me. But that's the point of it. That's because your endurance physically is being fed mentally. It's being fed emotionally. And these are things that work hand in hand with each other. So deciding what are the pros and cons of endurance comes down to technically every human being. Because if we just talk about what is the pros and cons, or what are the pros and cons of endurance, that's something you can look up on the internet. Right? That's something that's like, if you want a clear list, you can look at it on the internet. But I guarantee you that if you know yourself as who you are as a person, if you look at those lists, there might be some of the lists that you go against on. There are some things listed as a pro that you personally see as a con, and there are cons that you actually see as a pro, and that really goes down to how you yourself define endurance. It goes down to how you define and how you actually see the value of yourself. So going back to what Niamph mentioned a while ago, with her not actually knowing her value, then that's something that you can start on. You can actually start and I'm really hoping, and not just you and everyone else who's listening to this, to actually give yourself the privilege to actually explore yourself. Explore yourself in a matter of figuring out or who really is you. Who are you as a human being, and who are you, and who really is Niamph, or who really is Mitch. answering that question allows you to actually find your value, and that actually also allows you to find the value of your boundaries. Most of the time, people see boundaries as a negative thing. Not necessarily. If anything, boundaries are supposed to be there to keep you safe as well. And your boundaries and how you see your boundaries will also shift. It will also change according to how you value yourself. Because some things people say, oh, that's already my boundary. But that's not the boundary for you yet. Because you are already someone else different. You are someone else different. And you are also someone else that is capable of more compared to that person. Or things that you count as your boundary isn't a boundary for someone else, because vice versa. Because they can do better than you. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's more so you knowing who you are as a person, your worth, and what really is your value as a person, that allows you to define what would be your boundary as well, that will then also help you figure out how you wouldn't even reach the point of a burnout. And Chivo's, it's exactly the same as Chivo's thing. I understand the capacity to gung-ho things, like I want to keep doing this, and then you realize that you're already burnt out at the end of it. Being aware of what triggers or what brings you to the point of burnout allows you to then remind yourself way before, and like to remind yourself, hey, you should probably slow down, we're near burnout, things like that. And to so that they would say, but I'm excited. Now that's a completely different thing, because you're not gonna reach your burnout if you're emotionally and mentally still like going for it. But the problem is, what if your body was the last to go? So when your body gives out on you because you're already tired, every other function you have in your body is also already dead. There's a lot of things that you discuss, and there's a lot of things that you allow yourself to basically explore when it comes to endurance and how you basically know yourself as a person. And that's basically what I always ask people to do, and just give yourself the privilege to make mistakes. Give yourself the privilege to actually explore, so you can actually find out who you are and what your limits are as a human being. Do you guys have questions? Do you guys have additional things to say?
I guess I can really say that, realizing it now, and I think everyone knows it, but it's like people really neglect it. Just because you can do one whole lap doesn't mean you have to immediately do the other one. It's kind of like a cooldown thing. It's practically a recharge. You gotta get that battery changed. You're not using Bolt. You're not the Flash. Like, it's crazy to think that people just really.
I'm sorry.
It's not like everyone can just really go with the pacing of things, really. And as how depressing it is, really. So I don't know if it really goes on with our country, but with family matters, with how accomplishments are at stake here, and how people just really want to keep on with that achievements to eventually be on that spot on the stage, to actually be the valedictorian, and to give it the stage, not give it the stage, giving the speech to the audience. Some people do that a lot, and some people just really burn themselves up. Personally, when I get burned up to that same ambitious attitude that I would really want to go for, and when I actually do grasp it, and I had to like cope up with it about 2 weeks or so, once I got this trophy of mine, it's like, I'm not doing this ever again. But that's the most depressing part. That's the most depressing part, though.
Yes,
like, what if there's actually another challenge that's somewhat similar to it, with the stakes higher, with the risks higher, with the things that could be, worth it, but you just don't want to do it because you're going to be tired, because no one just really knows how to just squat real quick and tie up the knot in your shoe. It's kind of the thing that personally I really need to change myself in. I see that now. I think there's a lot of more things I can learn from, because I don't even know practically much of anything of a standard. I know that my bottle is gonna break, but it's a start. So yeah.
I've I've realized naman na, like how important boundaries is. After all throughout the talk, yung realize it's like your resting area. Like parang tumatakbo tayo papunta sa isang destination which is your goal. Tapos syempre, lahat tayo napapagod kakatakbuhin and everything. And we have to rest. And that boundaries is our resting area. You know, habang nag-rest ka sa boundary na yan, you can reflect then yung lahat ng daanan mo. So you can be a better person pag nag-start ka na ulit tumakbo. Ayun yung realize ko throughout the talk. So,
I like how she called it a talk too. It's not a podcast anymore. It's just it's a completely chef. I'm really hungry, aren't I? I called it a chef. A shift.
Oh
in mental mindset.
It actually felt like
We're
therapy.
everywhere. I'm melting. Alan with the what happened now? And then
Also, I like your. I find that funny because you said Volt and the Flash. Because one Volt is my first.
we're
character.
all about the running references now, huh?
Yeah, I know, right? It's like first and foremost, my main frame is actually Volt, and then my name's Allen. So, and then I have like one of the fastest internet right now. So like Barry Allen.
No,
Eh.
no. That is
You
another
started that.
topic.
Anyways,
that's
No one's gonna
another
understand that, so I'm probably gonna clip that out. Anyways, yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that can be talked about when it comes to endurance. A lot. There's so much, and normally when people want to talk about endurance, they want a list. They want a clear defined definition okay, fine. Endurance can have a clear defined definition that everyone could agree on. Yeah. But in terms of how it is being applied or how it will be applied to how we live our life, just like a lot of other things, that's not something that you can clearly define. The application of it is that differs between every human being. And that's the reason why when it comes to the topic of, endurance, give yourself the opportunity to actually talk to yourself. Don't talk to yourself the same way I do, where I verbally reply to myself and people think I am schizophrenic. Don't do that. Okay, look, if that helps you to process your brain, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Screw what people will say. Like, I do that. I talk to myself and I was like, hey Alan, I was like, so I was like, you good? Maybe, I don't know, like, how are you feeling? I was like, I don't really know, man. It's kind of difficult because of what happened in school. Yeah, because of what happened in school. Like that, I would talk to myself like that because it has come to a point where my family becomes very, very weary of me, and they're like, are you okay? And so as my other friends, but it's fine. They got used to it. And they're just like, don't worry, Alan's just talking to himself. And that's how I process myself, because you need to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest with how you're actually feeling. And not just to the point where you cry and then you're just like, oh man, damn, I feel bad about myself. I keep doing this to myself, man. And then
Really
you
gonna rub that
just
in?
do the exact same cycle. That's not just what you did, but everyone does that. People are just like, oh, damn, I pushed myself too far, and then it's just the same cycle over again. That if you're actually being honest to yourself and you're actually telling yourself that this is too much, keep note of it. Actually take note of what happened so that you can actually prevent that from happening in the future. You being able to take note of how much your endurance can take right now allows you to actually measure how much endurance you have more in the future. It's like saying, in my case, I've met so many people in life where I can only last 10 minutes with them and I really want to punch them in the face. Now I can last an entire hour. Progress, right? That's endurance on my end. That's something that people, again, endurance is a different thing for every human being because you define that. Just like a lot of things in life, you need to be able to define personally what endurance is. And, like what you guys mentioned, being able to figure it out allows you to actually reflect. Like what Niamph said and what they both basically said is that you guys can pretty much know when to start running again. Just because you need to complete 100 laps doesn't mean you have to complete 100 laps right now. It could be 20 at a time. Rest, do 20 again. And then you realize, oh, I have more stamina now, so I can do 21 laps. And then maybe you can reach a point where you run like Forrest Gump. Run an entire country with no end. You know, it's man, all these running references is just we're on point today. All right. But yes, just don't run away from your problems. All right. So do you guys have something else to say to the audience as a takeaway, or something that you wanna like, hey, don't do what I do, do this kind of thing, you know? Or like, don't do the same thing that made me go down to hell.
I guess
Ikaw muna.
the first na Niamph.
Yeah, she's
Ako muna. Basta ikaw muna. Ikaw muna.
Kasi Allen muna, sige.
oh no, I end the entire thing. I can't go first.
Just cut it short, really, with the whole pacing thing.
All right,
And
Barry
obviously
Allen.
with the running. Shut up with
Wait,
your
I'm
MVPs.
Barry Allen.
So it's really about with how
Yes.
people, like Alan said, it's really about how people learn from this way and their own definition of endurance. But I think the biggest highlight that he did say, and I will admit it is kind of right, because some people have different views in it. With all endurance, with all resilience, as you know that you're just tired from it, as you know that you really need to stop and you need to sit down, just need to look back real quick, and you know that these things can also be patched up. There are also things that can actually be worked on. You don't really need to get to the point of like, well, don't do the same exact thing that I did. That would actually be like, God damn, I'm super sad as hell. But it's more like, God damn, I'm super sad as hell, but I can do something about that. Right, Shaquille? Nah. But I don't know. People have their own ways to it. I guess you just need to learn yours too. But yeah.
My turn. I guess just take your time. Ako kasi, I felt na feeling ko, tawag dito? Ano ko na? Nakuhuli ako. Everyone's going forward, pero ako nakastay lang. Pero I realized na it's okay, I can just take my time. Kasi sa magmadali ako at wala akong matutunan in life. That's sad. Kasi nakapunta ako sa goal ko, pero wala naman ako natutunan. So, it's better to take time. Taking a rest isn't really, like, kasalanan. Like, just take a rest, at least. Hindi ka mapapagod. Kasi pag napagod ka, parang,
Kawawa.
hindi mo din mapupunta sa goal mo kasi nga napagod ka na. So, yeah.
You feel so bad about yourself, no? Because like you can see it's like, kawawa ko naman.
Ayan.
And it was like, who started that anyways?
Kasi iiyak kayo sa gabi, katulad ng Chivo, pag napagod kayo sa
I mean,
She said that, not me.
That
was her. You don't do it.
No, I hey, that's her.
I joke lang, it's okay to cry, pero you know, nakakapagod din. Kasi
yeah.
Nakakapagod umiyak gabi-gabi, di ba, Chivo? So,
okay, Mackenzie. Alright.
Okay, Mitschiener. So, ayun. Take rest.
Alright, but yes, so with everything that they mentioned, there's a few other things I wanted to comment on, but I'm not gonna go through that because I think you guys have already a general idea of the entire podcast, really, or talk, as what Niamph mentioned. It's really to wrap everything off. I personally genuinely hope that these two and everyone else listening, that you guys give yourself the privilege and the opportunity to explore yourself. Give yourself the privilege to actually find out how you work, how your brain works, how you react to things. 95% of the brain is unconscious. Only 5% is conscious. And giving yourself the capacity to at least try and understand the 95% will go a very, very long way. Because yes, during situations we may not be able to stop our unconscious reactions, but if we start training our unconscious reactions beforehand, then we won't react the same way. Just like how, for example, if you're put in a very bad situation, your unconscious reaction would be to cry, for example. But if you prepare yourself before you even get into that situation, you may end up being able to walk away from that situation without even crying in the first place. You can cry later on, but not on the spot, right? You may not be able to control your unconscious at that very moment, but it's something that you can train beforehand, so that it wouldn't explode the way it normally would if you didn't understand how your body works. So yes, I genuinely hope that you guys give yourself. He's melting again. You guys are gonna see that because I'm not gonna cut that out because I'm ending it. Again, give you guys yourself the chance to really explore yourself and find out who you really are. Figure out who really Mitch is. Figure out who really Niamph is. Your value as a person. Figure out who Jake is. What Johan is. Give me other generic names like Susan or like Karen, Harry. You can figure out if like you're a mechanic, if you're good as an artist. If you guys are good, everyone who saw the last podcast know what I'm doing right now. If you guys know, if you guys are like, if you are supposed to be an artist, a musician, a painter, if you guys are a like a psych person, if you like doing IT, or maybe you're even a wizard, Harry. I don't know. It's you're going to be able to find that out for yourself, and give yourself that chance. Being able to figure out who you really are as a person allows you to prepare yourself for whatever is to come, no matter what it is in life. And like what I said, rest. It's not bad to rest. And even if you feel like you're getting left behind, my question to that is, who said you're getting left behind? Who dictates that? There are people who are 90 years old and still following their dreams until now. It's never too late. What really matters is if you know yourself and you're happy with your life. That all really is that matters. Because no one else can dictate that but you. So, get to know yourself. Define things for yourself so that you're not getting washed away by the stream of what life declares what everything is. And allow yourself to rest when everything really is too much, so that you don't actually get burnt out and you can actually stand back up again and know that there's more to life that I can do. And it really is, first and foremost, taking care of oneself. Thank you all so much for joining us this recording or this podcast episode that you guys are watching us in.
Thank you.
Thank you to my guests, Mitch and Niamph. They're once again from Psych 201. I hope that I hope you guys enjoyed your time here as well. I hope you guys learned something. Everyone else who's watching or listening, I hope you guys learned something as well. And yeah, this is the second again of the 3-part, maybe 4, depends on how that's gonna go, of our collaboration podcast videos with APC PsychSoc. And so do look out again or watch out for the third one next week. With all that being said, thank you all so much for joining us once again. Have a great day. Have a great life. God bless. Stay awesome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Also, I just realized I
Bye.
didn't really introduce myself the entire time. Hi, I'm Allen Purto. I am the president, the Prime Minister of APC Speaks. Okay, bye.
This guy!